He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, Kyle, come in for just a second. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. A couple of things I want to mention to you. First, we'll come to CPR in just a second, but first, our friends in Louisiana and in eastern Texas, man, they got hit so hard.
They got hammered.
Hearing about how bad it is there, but it's not good, is it?
No, it's really not. Looks like the death toll's up to 14 now.
Yeah. No power, no water, no cell service, no phone service. Help's kind of slow. And it's not, they don't understand this. Sort of we do because of Katrina, but I remember the headline at the Sun Herald 2 or 3 days after the storm, it just screamed, help us now, because the frustration was so significant. Now, the cavalry's come in Louisiana, but the problem is when you have so much debris and destruction, it takes time to, get it positioned and get everything moving in the right direction. But
right. That's kind of one of those things that it goes back to preparing, and it's where this is why you need to be able to have items to sustain yourself for 3 to 5 days. In some cases, going to take a little bit longer when the destruction is that widespread.
Mm-hmm. What I saw was that because as we have talked about on the storm, as we have talked about as it relates to storms, and people should pay attention to what we're about to say here, that because of the pandemic, a lot of people in those areas chose not to go to shelters. So they might have gotten together in homes that they felt were stronger, but because of the 130-mile-an-hour winds, a lot of the roofs were blown off and tremendous damage occurred. And we may learn a lot more about the deaths that occurred and why they occurred. I know that in one case, it was the carbon monoxide because someone had a generator, where the fumes could get inside the house. I mean, just another great reminder, don't do that. But
they had the generator inside the house.
Go ahead, come back.
They had a generator inside the house.
Yeah. So because of the pandemic, though, it does create challenges. So just know what your plan's going to be. And by the way, pay attention to what's happening over there. They need all the help they can get. We know what that looks like to have the 1,000 points of light that I always talk about coming to coastal Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina. Do what you can. Find an organization that is doing good work there, and see if you can find a way to help.
Yeah, there's numerous organizations going over there this week and collecting items all week long.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and second, the incredible conversation we had yesterday about WCPR, that was fun, wasn't it?
It was a really good time, and listening to it back and thinking about it, and just some of the stories always breeds other stories, and there's just so many things that have been brought back to memory, since listening to the show and watching the show. There's countless CPR Fest stories. There's countless promotions that we've done that it's kind of scary, but we only scratched the surface in that episode.
The video is awesome. I love the commercials. The commercials in the video that's posted on Facebook that's so much fun.
Yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of what the personality is of the station. It's definitely different. But
really
like
stuff.
Kenny said, him and Scott had done that music thing for 25 years where they meet every Tuesday. There was a run where Kenny and I had our own superstitions where all of those commercials, all of those imaging, the liners, and this is CPR, we had a thing where him and I would get in a production room and record them in and turn around and have great results in the ratings the next time. It's amazing, the superstitions.
And the same group selecting music there that was there in 25. Anyway, how can people see that video?
SuperTalk MS Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook, SuperTalk Mississippi on YouTube, and it'll be on supertalk.fm/watch TV again today at 1 o'clock.
It's good,
tomorrow.
good stuff, man. If you remember, of course, you probably are a listener because the demographics for WCPR are incredible. WCPR still does incredibly, still one of the strongest radio stations in the country today, even 25 years later. And lastly, one of the cool things, like Brad Arnold joined us, Fred from Cowboy Mouth joined us, but to get the opportunity to get to know these people behind the public face, that's one of the cool things about this show, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you get little snippets when you're just listening to the radio, and I think this gives a more of an in-depth. This is kind of our own. I kind of liked it to the VH1 Behind the Music. This is our own Behind the Music with CPR.
Yeah, for sure. And so now let me switch. Talking about getting to know people behind, getting to know the person behind the public face. We've got one today, Richard Chenoweth. Richard, come on in and join me. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well,
thank you very much.
Well, Richard is a restaurant owner. He's a bread and breakfast owner. He is a leader in the community. He's a leader in his industry. He's a leader in tourism. He's an adventurer. He has done so many incredible things, but mostly just a great guy. I've known him for years, but as I was telling him before the show started, in my fast-paced life from before, I never really got to know people very well. That's just the reality. We move too fast in life. We don't take the time to understand the essence of who people are. And I'm thankful to God that I had this opportunity to really kind of zero in on each and every person who's on this show to really get to know the essence of who they are. And that's been a gift for me. I hope it's a gift to our listeners. It's positive news. It's hyper local because we're focused on people who are in coastal Mississippi who are making a difference. So I thank you for joining us today. So Richard, how you been?
I've been great. Speaking of storm, we came off of storm duty for Mississippi Power last week because basically everything shifted west, either fizzled or shifted west. And so on behalf of Mississippi Power, we've been working to get almost $30,000 worth of supplies, food, and mainly food, sent down to Louisiana. So it's leaving today. So I want to thank Mississippi Power for their generosity for sure.
I'm not surprised to hear that you're in the middle of that. And looking, you and I talked a little bit about this before we started, but when you have a long career community service and you do a lot of things, you get a lot of accolades along the way, but you're not looking for the accolades. You're just trying to make a difference ultimately. But the one that kind of impressed me was in 2007, you were the small business owner of the year for the Small Business Administration. And why that's important to me, I mean, I actually for the whole nation. So why that's important is that was 2 years after Katrina. And so, when you think about where we were in the days after Katrina and that you were able to pick up the pieces, as Haley said many times, you hitched up your britches and got on with the program. But, 2 years later to have that designation, I'm really impressed with that. I mean, you've got all these other accolades for sure, but you've really worked hard over your life to just try to make a difference. Isn't that true?
That's exactly true, and you're right. It's not for the accolades or anything like that. I'm just trying to make a difference. I'm just trying to help people. It's I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist, and I'm always trying to make things better.
Well, through your many investments in the Pascagoula community, you have proven that you really care about that community. But you've traveled all over the world. You've certainly traveled all over the United States, and every time you leave, you're bringing back a lot of ideas. I call you kind of an adventurer because these people who leave the community and come back, they have an interesting perspective that shapes the kind of impact that they want to make in their community. And I actually want to start with that. So when we come back from the break, we're gonna get into a little bit about some of your travels. You're always searching for sort of that next best thing. I want to hear what's driving you as it relates to that. You actually took a jet ski to New York. And kind of a record-breaking adventure there. People are going to be amazed at that story. So we're gonna talk about that. You're friends with Jimmy Buffett. I want to hear about that. We'll come back and we're going to kind of take your life story.
I wish I had his cell number though.
We'll be back. We'll be back after this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1. The stay-at-home orders, the new state flag, the mask mandates, the protests and riots in many of our nation's cities, the battle for the White House. So far, 2020 has been a year like no other, and only one radio station has covered it all from a Mississippi point of view. SuperTalk Mississippi. And hang on, because who knows what 2020 will bring us next. Whatever it is, SuperTalk will be right here to deliver it to you live. Listen in all 82 counties statewide. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have two risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had two different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Put, come on, it's time for me to go beat Elvis." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Richard Chenoweth with us today. He's the owner, one of the owners of Scranton's, and and the Grand Magnolia in Pascagoula. He's doing some innovative work today in the area of mixed use. We're going to come to that in a second. But he's also sort of an adventurer. As I mentioned when we went to break, he's kind of traveled all over. He's constantly looking either through these industry organizations that he's involved in and the travel that enables, or just on his own. He's always looking for sort of the next important thing. He's got really famous friends. In fact, in an interview not too long ago, Jimmy Buffett said that Scranton's was one of his top restaurant and bars on the Gulf Coast. What's the connection to Jimmy Buffett?
Well, it's, of course, the biggest connection is Pascagoula. And Jimmy has gotten to the point where, he's gotten older and he's reflecting back on his life and everything like that. And Pascagoula holds a very, very special place for him, mainly because of his grandfather. His grandfather constantly lived here even after they moved to Mobile to work at the shipyard. His father worked at the shipyard over there. And but he'd always come over here on the weekends with his grandfather, and his grandfather taught him. He had all these charts, and he would take him down. They lived on this bayou down there, and he would say, "Show me where we are on this chart." And he would show him where he was, and he said, "Now you see this bayou right here? You can go out this bayou, and you can go anywhere you want to in the world from here." And so that that was a big impression on him and everything. And so he's, willing to come back and, dedicate that Buffett Bridge. We wanted to name the bayou after him, but it was already named after another historical figure, so we settled on the bridge, and then they made it Buffett Beach. They took it even farther than where we started. And he's just come back several times. He came here to the Grand Magnolia and played with Mac McAnally. It just, the earth collided together or whatever, all the constellations came together that it worked out that he was in Mobile. And he came over and he said, I'm going to play 3 songs and then, let it go from there. And he ended up staying until 1:30 in the morning, between the restaurant and the Grand Magnolia, and just had a blast. Every time he's come, he's had a good time. And so, and who knows, when people have access to private jets, you never know when they're going to show up.
No doubt.
And he's good friends with Franz Hanning, who is my business partner's brother-in-law. So we've all connected through, all that. And he stayed here at the Grand Magnolia too, along with Mac and everybody. So and he feels safe and is not bothered or anything like that. So it works out well.
That's so awesome. It is. I think people do, as they get older, they do reflect a lot more about their roots. And he's a philosopher to begin with.
Well, when he came down, he made sure one of his stops, and nobody really knew about it, was to go back to his grandfather's old house. The people that were living in the house, they were just, they said, keep this under wraps. Well, he showed up over there, and of course, all the cousins, the family, everybody was there, like people were there. But they left him alone. He went in the backyard and just reflected a little bit, and then, got back in his seaplane and took off.
Wow, that's so interesting. So tell me about your jet ski adventure.
I bought a jet ski from Perry's Yamaha over here in Pascagoula, and for some reason, I loved traveling on it. It was like a motorcycle on the water, and I just would cruise all the time. It was like my boat. And so I said, well, let's go to Destin. So I had 2 other friends that were also interested in it. So we went to Destin, and then we said, well, let's go to Key West. And so we did the 6 days to Key West, and just every time we had fun. You're doing it for the adventure. You're doing it for the fun. Well, we just happened to work our way into the Guinness Book of World Records because of it. But we didn't do it for the Guinness Book of World. If you did it for that, you'd be miserable. And then the next year we left and we knew that, then we got motivated by the Guinness Book of World Records and said that record won't stand, that's only 1,000 miles. So we left here and went to New York City. and Sean Kennedy. We have all these relationships. You can't do anything in your life without relationships, without other people, and other people believing in you and everything. So Sean Kennedy was our home base up there. We stayed on the Mariner when we got to Chelsea Pier, where he stayed. Sean and I are still friends to this day. I was down in Naples not too long ago on his boat. But so we got to New York, and then we decided the next year we were going to go from New York back and end up making the Great Loop, which was from Pascagoula all the way back through the Great Lakes and down the Mississippi River and back to Pascagoula again. So we accomplished that. Took us 3 years, but we did it.
Wow, that is so interesting. Good. Where did that sense of adventure come from?
We moved around so much. My father, he worked for Clark Equipment. We lived in Puerto Rico. We lived in St. Joe, Michigan. We lived in Chicago. We went from Chicago to Puerto Rico to Havana to Pensacola to Pascagoula. We just moved around a lot. I was a little kid taking pictures of my kindergarten class or whatever that we were always leaving. One sister was born in Ohio. One sister was born in Oklahoma. Another sister was like me. She was born in Bermuda. And so I think it's just a little wanderlust that I've always had. My answer has always been yes. Now where are we going? And it's worked well over the years. Because it's afforded me a lot of places to go.
But it's not just about going there and experiencing something new, but it's about being sort of a human sponge while you're there. Tell me about that part of you.
We were coming in on our wave runners. We were coming into Nag's Head, and Nag's Head is a big bill fishing weekend. We look like three Hells Angels. We're in rubber suits, from head to foot. We got stuff tied onto these wave runners and fuel tanks and everything like that. And people were just staring at us. And I was going, oh my God, this isn't going to be a friendly port. And they were the friendliest people. They took care of us. And I said, I learned right then, dig a little bit deeper before you prejudge what's going to happen and everything like that. And so that's kind of served me well, because I've tried to go everywhere I can. I go with a big group of people that are friends of mine from all over the country. We have a common interest in these culinary learning journeys, and it's part of an education foundation. It's how we raise money to put people through catering conferences and stuff like that. So it's a dual purpose. It's not just a single purpose. But getting to know all those people, if you don't think that that's come in handy with this pandemic, we do Zoom meetings every week trying to discuss ideas on how to get out of this mess. That's why I belong to these associations and everything, because it gets me access to smarter people than I am. It gets me it builds relationships around the country. Everybody goes through different things. And so I guess that's where it's come from. It's, I meet those people, then I want to go see them again.
Yeah.
Or, I want to do my 50 states. I've got 49 states. I still got Alaska to go. I did several of them in an RV for 9,000 miles, but we had a blast. And you run into people that have a connection to Pascagoula everywhere you go. They've either worked at Ingalls, or they know somebody, or they've been to Biloxi, or they've been to Bay St. Louis. Everywhere I went, we ran into people. It's, there's a whole world out there, and you learn so much from it. You really do. And part of it is, yes, I'm always looking for that black and red fish, that recipe that's, that took Paul Prudhomme, Cape Paul's and everything like that. That black and red fish just swept the country.
Yes.
I could go here to the fish market and they try to give me the redfish before that. Now, then you couldn't find them. But it's just, I guess, just that sense of that knowledge trying to bring positive stuff back to Pascagoula, stuff that I can use in my business that's going to, make my business better and my life.
So this is Richard Chenowitz, the owner of Scranton's in Pascagoula. But Richard, it's interesting as you travel there's so many layers to what you talked about, because it's about connecting with people. It's about enjoying new places. It's about soaking up sort of the culture. You talked about the culinary experience and all around that. And what's most important, actually, and you're using this today, and we'll get into this in the next segment, but you're using this as an opportunity to really find innovation, to find the best practices. What are the great ideas that are out there, and how can I begin to embody that into my company and do things? Because one of the things you've accepted is that this pandemic's not going away anytime soon. So why don't we build our concepts around the reality that some people might want to take out, and some people might want to do things a little bit differently as it relates to restaurants. And you're going to hit on a lot of those cylinders. You're learning about those kinds of things. Why don't we do this? When we come back from the break, we're going to kind of continue this conversation about how he got to this point in his journey where he's being so innovative and so focused on building a Pascagoula that's going to be generational and have generational impact. We'll be back with Richard Chenoweth after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, the man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen. Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst. When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And, Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out a third of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The stay-at-home orders, the new state flag, the mask mandates, the protests and riots in many of our nation's cities, the battle for the White House. So far, 2020 has been a year like no other, and only one radio station has covered it all from a Mississippi point of view. SuperTalk Mississippi. And hang on, because who knows what 2020 will bring us next. Whatever it is, SuperTalk will be right here to deliver it to you live. Listen in all 82 counties statewide. SuperTalk Mississippi.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Richard Chenoweth with us today. He's a significant community leader, not just in Pascagoula, but across the coast and across the state, and a restaurant owner, a bed and breakfast owner, and someone who's just dedicated so much of his life to the community, to his industries, and he just wants to make a difference. You know, he has never lost focus on, family first and community first, but he's been really focused on trying to make a difference. So, Richard, why don't we do? This has been so fascinating. I would have never done that jet ski journey, even today with the fancy machines we have available to us today. You didn't have a fancy machine, did you?
Oh no. No, we had to, they have cruise control now. What we used was Velcro back then. We could adjust with Velcro because your hand would go numb.
Wow, that's so interesting. So let's come to your restaurant journey. You had two partners. The Pascagoula area where you went to was actually called Scranton. After Scranton, Pennsylvania, was actually named that for a period of time. Eventually that changed, but that's how the restaurant got its name. You didn't buy an existing restaurant. You bought a collection of buildings that were kind of the city hall, the fire department. There was even a jail there. Tell about that decision.
I worked my way through college at the warehouse at Ole Miss, and just loved the restaurant business. Just loved what it was about and everything. And so when I came back, I was actually selling insurance for 4 years, but this restaurant was always in the back of my head. And when we started looking at the fire station there, it just seemed like such a great theme. One of my favorite restaurants back then was Fridays. That in the 70s I had gone to a lot, and I liked that theme and everything like that. And then we liked the sandwiches at Maspero's in New Orleans, and so we tried to combine that into the restaurant and everything like that. Of course, now 38 years later, we're still in business, which is, I don't know how. Some of the times I look back at some of the adversity and some of the money problems that we've had over the years, and we're still here. And I used to make a joke that we had so much memorabilia that my wife wouldn't let me go out of business because she knew I'd bring it all home. So she kept working hard. So so I could pursue my hobby, which was the restaurant business. But so Merle Ivy, she gave us the seed money. We started it with $35,000. My other partner is Jack Pickett, who's an attorney. Both of them mainly silent partners and everything like that, except on major, decisions and things like that, especially now. Merle passed away, unfortunately, had a heart attack in the emergency room at the hospital. She wasn't feeling well a few years ago. And so we're partners with her two daughters. But we started it with $35,000 and we just kept plowing money back into it. And, I tell people I've walked around there with chewing gum and duct tape to try to keep it all going together. And now after all these years, it's actually Katrina helped us out a lot. And I've always said with chaos comes opportunity. And, the out here told me that thanks to you, you showed the community to come back, because we were open within 3 weeks of the storm, and we fought every day to get open like that. And I couldn't have done it without my employees, of course, but we were just lucky. We were just fortunate. We didn't wait for insurance. We didn't wait for anybody. We just kind of tried to make our own path, and we used all the resources and all the help that was given to us. We didn't just do it on our own. But luckily, we had made what Kyle was talking about, we had made a lot of preparations and a lot of plans. And so we did the same thing with this pandemic. We've decided to change branding and change focus of the restaurant and try to get ready for the next 38 years.
Well, it's incredible, 38 years, and I want to talk about the changes that you're making and the move to mixed use. But before we do that, if you think about the soul of the restaurant, after 38 years, what is the soul? Because I know when I used to go there on a regular basis when I was in that area working, it always had this feel. First of all, the food was always great, but it had this feel to it. There was a friendliness about it, but it's more than that. Describe the soul of the restaurant.
The restaurant is a community. I mean, if you think of all the weddings and all the special events, the teachers, the first time they ever voted to strike, did it upstairs. And, there's so much history and so many people associate big events in their lives to the restaurant, anniversaries, weddings, class reunions, rehearsal dinners, just everyday, family gatherings and everything like that. So there's just such a community spirit about it. And we really try to support the community, and, we give back to the community, and that comes back to us. It really does. You don't see it all, of course. You know how it is when you advertise in the newspaper. You don't see how that advertisement affects everybody, but somehow, as long as you're doing positive, and as long as you're putting your positive message out there, those good vibes will come back to you. And I think that's where Scranton's is about.
Well, it's about understanding your brand. If you think about the definition of brand is the emotional connection that someone has with a product. It's really understanding the brand and understanding the emotional connection that people have with Scranton's and being able to sort of maintain that over the years. And, the restaurant business, as you know, forget about the pandemic for a second, just in general, it's a difficult business. It's rare to stand the test of time in the restaurant business. In order to be able to do that, there has to be this incredible ability to understand the connection, the emotional connection that people have with it. And that's sort of the way you described it. You described it in the way of life events that people have and how they never forget that. But this life event is a positive time in their life, and the experience they had at the restaurant, during that time was a positive experience, and it sort of reflects, and it becomes sort of a generational thing over the years, doesn't it?
Yeah. I joke to people, it's funny you should say that, because I joke to people that now I'm doing weddings for children of parents. I did the parents' wedding, and now I'm doing the children's weddings, and I'm getting close to doing some grandchildren's weddings, I'm scared to say.
Hey, listen, thank God you have that opportunity. Look, live in the moment, man. Live in the moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's kind of the way you have to look at life. So the pandemic strikes, you sort of get that life's going to change. And you have this incredible network that you're able to draw from not just your years of being involved in industry-related organizations, but the friendships that you developed. You've been able to tap into that to try to understand, okay, what are some innovative approaches that we can take that will enable us to sort of go forward strategically in a way that we can be successful and also serve the changing needs of the community. Talk about that.
Well, what's happened is, what the pandemic did was it forced people to make changes that may have only taken them 5 years. May have taken them 5 years to make. It's pushed them to make some of those changes in 3 or 4 months. People that wouldn't have ordered online for 5 more years were forced to do it, forced to learn it, and it's not a tough learning. They're learning that it's not a tough learning, and it forced people to change their habits and to see things differently. And so that's what we're thinking, that it's still going to be changed. There's going to be less people that they do surveys, and 20% of the people say that they're not going to go to restaurants or be less inclined to go to restaurants. So you're going to lose 20% of your people that are going to change their habits and want pre-prepared foods. They're going to want casseroles to go. They're going to want to be able to pick up and grab and go, or have it delivered, or have it, curbside or whatever. We're going to do all that. And we used that chaos as our learning process. And then we've done a lot more research, and we've gone all around the Southeast looking at different things. And we're going to start out small. We have what we call phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and hopefully we'll never get to phase 4. But we have all that going on, to start opening. And we didn't want to. We've got so much construction going on with remodeling, and then we've got apartments going on upstairs. We've got 4 apartments being built up there as we speak, that there's so much going on that it just worked out well to go ahead and shut down during this period. That way we didn't have to deal with all the problems that came with the pandemic, all the regulations, all the, just all that was going on, all those restrictions. So it allowed us the freedom to be able to make some good decisions and to take our time and make sure that we're, we've torn out bathrooms, we've redone the kitchen, we tore out the complete front dining room where you used to sit up there on the platform. That's all gone. It's a wide open room now. We decluttered everything after 38 years. You just say, I'll just put it over there, or nail it up over there, and stuff like that. Well, we took all that stuff down and condensed it and made it good.
Let's do this, Richard. This is Richard Chenoweth from Scranton's restaurant, but that doesn't even begin to describe who he is and what his impact in coastal Mississippi and the state has been. When we come back from the break, we talk a little bit more about the innovation. Then I really want to understand a little bit more about what makes you tick and giving back to the community. When we come back from the break, we'll continue our conversation.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute,
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here. The show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now. Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse at telesouth.com. That's JESSE at telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Richard Chenoweth with us today. He's a restaurant owner in Pascagoula. He's involved in the bed and breakfast industry. He's a tourism leader. What we were talking about during the break is that, man, I mean, when you hear the time frames for Coast View, you think, man, that's a lot of time. And then you start getting into the conversation, you realize, wow, that's not enough time. This happens all the time. But unpacking a guy like Richard, a community leader, someone whose heart and soul is in this community, it's not easy because there's so much there. Richard, when we went to the break, we were talking about how you used this pandemic moment to literally reposition yourself strategically. And you talked about the phases that you sort of lined up. And that you're going through this renovation now. You're creating sort of a mixed use with apartments up above and then the restaurant, takeout, come for lunch and then, grab dinner while you're there and bring it home. You're really taking advantage of a lot of the best practices that have emerged. But what was interesting about what you said was that technology, this is true in every, whether you're talking about corporate America, whether you're talking about education or healthcare, restaurant business, that a lot of trends were in place before the pandemic. What the pandemic did is just speed those trends up. That's what you were just talking about, that people are much more apt to use technology to interact with their food choices, et cetera, and you're creating sort of a strategic way for them to be able to do that. And I congratulate you for that. What's happening in downtown Pascagoula as it relates to the Downtown Development Authority, and I had a conversation with Paige Roberts from the Jackson County Chamber the other day, and we talked about all these various mixed-use projects that are underway. It's going to transform Pascagoula, isn't it?
It sure is, and Paige is a big part of that. She's a dynamo, let me tell you. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing what I'm doing now without the support of the community. It's the first time that I've seen everybody seems to be coming together for one common purpose. Before, you might have a common purpose, but it was fragmented. People, this is the way we need to do it, or this is the way we need to do it. But we've got the right leadership. I've always said things happen, the right people are in the right place at the right time. And for some reason, this is all happening right now with the right people. And there's no more talking. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're putting massive support behind it. Mississippi Power has hired Chris Chain that has been successful in doing this all over Mississippi and along the Gulf Coast and in New Orleans and everything. So I'm not just doing this by myself. I mean, there's a lot of people helping me, helping me be brave.
A lot of alignment of the stars. Andreas Dwani, who's the father of New Urbanism, who worked with us for the Mississippi Renewal Forums, the charrettes that we did after Katrina, he said of us that what he had to sort of understand about us was, as he traveled across coastal Mississippi, even in this devastation, he saw unbelievable potential. He said, my gosh, I had never realized this place was here. And what he saw when he looked at like codes and approaches before the storm, he said, man, you guys don't have a high enough opinion of yourselves. You don't really appreciate the opportunities. And it's taken a lot of time since Katrina for us to find this moment, but Pascagoula is emerging as this place where people are going to want to live, that are technology oriented, that are in that sweet spot of age group, that are going to want to live downtown. They want to live, work, and play, in the same place. You're actually, it's so interesting that Pascagoula is doing that. You see project in Biloxi, you see projects being considered in Gulfport, you see things happening in Bay St. Louis, Ocean Springs, obviously, you see things happening there. It's amazing. It's taken time, but we're emerging finally as a set of communities that are going to create such a sense of place that it's going to make people want to go there. You see that clearly in Pascagoula, don't you?
Yes, and I'm telling you, but Pascagoula's being helped with everything that's happening along the coast. The one coast thing, the secret coast, all of that. It's rolling up. It's starting to boil. It's been simmering for a long time, and we're finally seeing this start to boil, I think. And we're seeing ourselves as one community, not just Biloxi. There's always going to be the Indians and the Gators and the Panthers and everything like that, but the negative stuff to combat. Don't be negative. If you're negative about something, do something about it.
Yeah.
It's a solution instead of just speaking about it and say, "Oh, we'll never do that," and never. That's not the way to do it. And I think we'll never overcome it. There'll always be naysayers, but we were down here, we're up here now.
It takes passion, it takes commitment, it takes vision, it takes patience. Good Lord, if anyone understands patience, it's us after Katrina, to understand how we're emerging. But we are this collection of communities that make up coastal Mississippi, and as a result of that, we and our knowledge of that, and our understanding of that, and our resiliency being part of our DNA, that's what makes this such a great place. Richard, I wish we had more time. We're out of time, but when we come back the next time, and I'd love to have you back in a month or so, I want to kind of get a progress report on your restaurant and what you're doing there, and then I want to dive a little bit deeper into commitment around community, because you really do personify what others should follow. And I hope that you'll join me in a month or so and let us continue the conversation.
I'd love to. Hopefully, I'll be even more optimistic by then.
You're optimistic now. What are you talking about? The conversation has been incredibly inspiring, and you're literally the reason why I agreed to do this show. And I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Ricky. Appreciate it. You too, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You got my best side, didn't you, Kyle?
I did.
Well, thank you for joining us on Coast View, and have a great day.
You too.